Cold didn't just bite in wartime, it hunted. It crept up through the ground, stole heat from boots, numbed legs, and quietly killed men who never heard a shot fired. In the deadliest winters of modern war, survival often came down to something almost invisible underfoot. Before we dive in, if this channel keeps your survival instincts sharp and your history dangerous, hit subscribe now so you don't miss the next forgotten trick that saved lives when the world froze solid. History loves to talk about weapons, tactics, and heroic charges. But freezing wars were won and lost at ground level. Long before frostbite blackened fingers or hypothermia shut down organs, cold attacked from below. Frozen earth sucked warmth straight out of the body. Standing or sleeping directly on soil, mud, or ice could drop core temperature faster than exposure to open air. Soldiers learned this the hard way, and then they adapted. What emerged wasn't glamorous. It didn't explode or roar, but it worked. A simple raised floor, a quiet layer of separation between man and ground. That air gap became the difference between holding the line and being carried out. The secret wasn't heat. It was distance. Even a few inches mattered. By lifting soldiers off the frozen ground, armies broke the direct transfer of cold. This wasn't theory. It was battlefield science learned through loss. Wooden planks laid over mud, slats raised on short supports, crates flipped upside down. Anything that created space beneath the body trapped air, and trapped air meant insulation. In trenches, bunkers, and temporary shelters, these floors became standard wherever commanders paid attention. Once installed, sickness rates dropped, frostbite cases fell, soldiers slept longer, and sleep, in winter war, was as valuable as ammunition. Why the ground was deadlier than snow. Snow looks brutal, but frozen soil is worse. Snow contains air. Earth does not. Frozen ground acts like a heat sink, pulling warmth relentlessly from anything touching it. Lie on it long enough, and your body loses the fight no matter how many layers you wear. That's why soldiers who piled on coats but slept on bare ground still froze. Clothing protects against wind, but floors, well, they protect against physics. Raised floors stopped conductive heat loss. They also allowed moisture to drain away. Dry feet meant fewer infections, and dry bedding meant fewer deaths. All from something most people never think about. Inside winter shelters that actually worked in cold campaigns. Smart units built shelters from the floor up. The first task wasn't walls, and it wasn't roofs. It was lifting the living space off the earth. Planks were laid over crossbeams. Straw or pine boughs were stuffed underneath. Sometimes rubble or empty containers created the gap. The goal was always the same: break contact with the ground. In enclosed spaces, this design trapped warmer air above and colder air below. Soldiers noticed it immediately. The shelter felt calmer, less biting, less damp. The body conserved energy instead of burning it just to stay alive. This wasn't luxury, it was survival engineering. The silent war on feet and legs? Well, it didn't start with dramatic collapses. It started in the feet. Trench foot, numb toes, loss of circulation. These were the first signs. Once a soldier couldn't feel his legs, he just couldn't fight. And once blood flow shut down, amputation or sometimes death followed. Raised floors kept boots dry, and they allowed air circulation. Soldiers could, remove their footwear briefly without having to stand in ice water. That alone saved countless limbs. Commanders who ignored flooring paid for it in medical evacuations, but those who prioritized it kept their men combat-ready longer. The ground war was literal. Speed was the hidden advantage. One of the most overlooked facts is just how fast these floors could be built. In many cases, it took less than an hour. No heavy tools were needed. No specialized materials either. Just awareness. That speed really mattered. Winter fronts shifted quickly. Units would dig in overnight. A shelter without a raised floor was a death trap by morning. Those who knew the trick could turn scrap into insulation before the cold settled in. It's why veteran troops pass this knowledge down quietly. No manuals, no speeches, just hard-earned habit. Lessons modern survival still gets wrong. Modern prepping really obsesses over gadgets. Heaters, high-tech fabrics, all that stuff. But honestly, the old rule still holds true. Insulate from the ground first. Camping deaths, cold weather emergencies, and exposure incidents still happen because people underestimate ground contact. A sleeping bag on frozen earth, well, it just fails. But a raised platform, that actually succeeds. The soldiers knew it because they had to. Comfort was irrelevant. Staying alive was everything. Why this secret stayed quiet? It wasn't classified. It just wasn't exciting. Floors don't make headlines. But, they win winters. Military history often skips the small things that actually kept armies functioning. Yet when you strip away the myths, survival is about managing energy, moisture, and heat loss. The raised floor nailed all three. It didn't stop bullets, it stopped the cold, and in freezing wars, that was enough. The real takeaway: this wasn't just a trick. It was a mindset. Respect the environment. Fight physics before you fight enemies. Control what touches your body, especially from below. The soldiers who survived winter campaigns weren't tougher. They were smarter. They understood that sometimes the most powerful defense isn't a weapon, it's a layer of air under your boots. If this deep dive unlocked something new for you, make sure you're subscribed to History's Survival Code. Share this with someone who thinks survival is all gear and no knowledge, and stay ready. Because, history doesn't repeat itself, but cold doesn't care who you are.